Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for coming on short notice, by definition. That's the way Mother Nature works. To start us off this morning, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin Wisely, who is head of the State Emergency Management, to give us an update on the weather and what we're looking at.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to first introduce our state commissioners that are here also with us today as part of the operation. Commissioner Rose Harvey from the New York State Parks and Recreation and Historic Preservation. Commissioner Roger Perino, New York State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services. Executive Deputy Commissioner Terry O'Leary from the Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services. Superintendent George Beach from the New York State Police. Major General Raymond Shields from the Division of Military and Naval Affairs. Brigadier General Patrick Center, also from the Division of Military and Naval Affairs. And we also have with us today Carrie Gallagher, our DEC Regional Director. Thank you all for joining us for this quick presentation and briefing on what's coming. Hurricane Jose is working its way up the East Coast. It's currently about 230 miles southeast of the city of New York. The potential storm surge of 2 feet is what we're keeping an eye on, what we're watching. We've had some flooding onto the beaches of Jones Beach and some of the state parks. Nothing significant at this time, but we're going to continue to keep a close eye on that. We know full well what the potentials are from these tropical storms, these hurricanes that come up and impact the state of New York, as we saw in Sandy, where we had storm surge of 8 to 9 feet over a large portion of the downstate area. What we can expect on Long Island, we currently still have a tropical storm watch for Suffolk County. The watch has been dropped for Nassau and Westchester. In New York City, we're continuing to watch very closely this storm and this front as it moves up. We're looking at the potentials for winds in the 39 miles an hour range, gusting to 45, mainly out on the eastern parts of Suffolk County. Minor coastal flooding is expected today, with some moderate coastal flooding possible tonight with the high tide cycles. At the governor's direction, we've deployed 100 members of the National Guard, members of our urban search and rescue team, various officials from the Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services, and working very closely with PSE&G on Long Island here to ensure that there's properly resourced for line crews and tree crews to work any conditions that may occur. We have assets pre-deployed in the area. Many of those assets are located here at the Welcome Center, right outside the doors, and they're located at our strategic stockpiles that are close by, as well as pre-deployed in the field, as you can see by the listing here. You'll be able to see the assets later on. Things like our Zodiac boats, our high-axle vehicles that we have, we're well stocked and prepared for any work that needs to be done in partnering with Nassau and Suffolk County in any response that's necessary. Even our jet skis and our stockpile items, things like sandbaggers, our potable water tanks, and various size generators that we could bring to bear if necessary in the community as part of the response. As also in our stockpiles here on Long Island and JFK and even up in the lower mid-Hudson Valley, we have various water and food and cots and blankets, various commodities that can be brought into a community to assist if that was necessary. At this time, I'd like my honor to turn it back over to Governor Andrew Cuomo.
Thank you. Thank you very much. For those of you who haven't been here before, welcome to the Long Island Welcome Center. Today the center is closed for this purpose, but it is a tourism center to promote Long Island and what we have here. It's a welcome addition to the community. Tourism, as you know, is a big economic generator for us all across the state, especially here on Long Island with all the new attractions we have, and this center has operated very well. It also seconds as a shelter deployment center, which is the way we're using it today. It's right on the Long Island Expressway, so for heavy equipment to get here, it's proximate, and from this location you can deploy throughout the island. So thank you for being here. I also want to thank my partners who are here. You'll hear from them shortly, County Executive Steve Ballone and County Executive Ed Mangano. I also want to thank the Senate leader for being here with us today, John Flanagan, as well as all the state commissioners who are here, all the National Guard people, and the county and local officials who are all here. I was in the Virgin Islands last week, and I can't tell you the level of devastation in the Virgin Islands. It was amazing. It didn't get the same attention because we had Texas going on and Florida going on, but it was just another reminder of the power of Mother Nature. We all watched what happened in Florida and Texas. We all remember what we've gone through in this state on Long Island with Hurricane Sandy. That was devastating, took years to rebuild from. We're still rebuilding from Hurricane Sandy. We've had weather-related emergencies in this state like we've never had in history before. 7 feet of snow in Buffalo fell at one time. Now, Buffalo gets snow, but 7 feet of snow was a record for Buffalo. Hurricane Irene ravaged parts of upstate. So we take this very, very seriously. There's a certain amount of unpredictability to Mother Nature. They do storm tracks, computer models, and sometimes they turn out right, sometimes they turn out wrong. I made a mistake once of criticizing the weather prediction that it wasn't as forecast, and I was bombarded by weather forecasters from across the country. So I won't make that mistake again. But there is an unpredictability to the weather pattern. What we believe here in this state is better be prepared, err on the side of caution. We're looking at Storm Jose now coming up the coast. Behind Jose is another storm, Storm Maria, which may also hit Long Island. So our MO has been to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. We have deployed equipment from all across the state that has come down that might be relevant to the weather patterns that we're seeing here. We're in full coordination with Nassau County and with Suffolk County, and we work hand in glove. Unfortunately, we've had too much experience working hand in glove on these weather emergencies. My father was governor for 12 years. I've been governor for about half the amount of time. In that half time period, I've had just about as many weather-related emergencies as he had in double the time. And our weather-related emergencies are much more dangerous than anything we've seen in the past. We didn't have hurricanes in New York. We didn't have tornadoes in New York. So this has been a reboot for the state, if you will. We are much more equipped to handle emergencies now than we ever have been before. We've invested in equipment, we've invested in training, we've invested in coordination with local governments, and that's what you see here today. A seamless operation where the county, the state, locals are all working together. One of the problems we've had in the past has been poor communication. We went through Hurricane Sandy, and frankly, it was the first time we had gone through something like that, and we learned the hard way. Situation like this, government has to work, and it has to work well. And you know when it works, and you know when it doesn't work. When it doesn't work, you could lose lives. When it does work, first responders get there, they get there quickly, they get there with the right equipment, they get there with the right training, and that's what we've been perfecting since Hurricane Sandy. I want to thank my colleagues in the legislature. They have invested heavily in emergency equipment and stockpiles all throughout the state, which you saw in Kevin's presentation. We have now stockpiles on Long Island in Brentwood, which is a warehouse full of any emergency equipment that you could need, generators, emergency food, cots, water, etc. And we've done these strategically throughout the state. Again, we learned the hard way of trying to scramble in the middle of a storm to locate hundreds of generators. You can't do it once the storm comes. Once it hits, it's too late. So the only sensible protocol is to do what you need to do before the storm comes. Make sure everything is in place and plan for the worst-case scenario. I also want to thank the legislative leaders who have been so understanding and flexible. We've handled emergencies where we've deployed state personnel and tens of millions of dollars, and we've done it on a phone call rather than a protracted legislative process in Albany. And I want to thank Speaker Carl Heastie, who's been a great partner, and I want to thank Senate Leader John Flanagan, who literally, with a phone call, we've moved people all across the state. And today is one of those situations. You see equipment and personnel from as far away as Buffalo here today. And they're here on short notice because at the end of the day, this is one state, and we're all there for each other. How we respond in storms is one of the greatest inspirations to me. In many ways, when things are at their worst, people are at their best. And when one of us is in trouble, we're all in trouble. So people understand that there's a potential that Long Island is going to be hurt by this storm. And without any hesitation, people have come from all across the state. We are prepared for whatever it is or for whatever it isn't. Again, Jose is the initial situation that we're monitoring, but right behind it is Storm Maria. So whatever happens with Jose, we're going to remain deployed through the coming and going of Storm Maria. So the assets you see here will remain here through that period of time. It's also been an extraordinary time for our first responders who have been helpful all across this nation. We should really be proud. The way it works in an emergency is basically the theory of mutual aid. States help other states. And New York has religiously been there for other states. When Florida needed help, we responded. When Texas needed help, we responded. I remember when we needed help on Long Island at Hurricane Sandy, and I was calling governors all across this country, and we were literally sending C-130s to California to pick up equipment and send it to Long Island. And I remember how willing they were to send personnel and equipment on a moment's notice. And I believe in the ultimate theory of karma. You get what you give. So New York is always there to help our neighbors, and they've always been there for us. I'd like to recognize the National Guard and the first responders who are really extraordinary. And you want to hear about extraordinary service we have with us today, ready for Jose and Maria, members of the 106th Air Wing Power Jumpers who just got back from Texas and Florida, where they were on duty helping out there, and they're with us today to help us out today. So let's give them a round of applause. I also want to recognize the members of the Fire Prevention and Control Urban Search and Rescue Task Force who were also deployed to Florida, trying to find people in homes who were trapped. They got back last night from Florida, and they're here this morning. So let's give them a round of applause. To members of the public, just be smart. Be smart. We've gone through this before. You know how to prepare. You know how to prepare your property. You know how to prepare your yard. And you know how to use common sense. about things you should be doing and not doing. If the storm gets bad, stay home. Just stay home. Going on the roads in the middle of a storm is not just irresponsible for yourself and your family, it also puts first responders at risk, because then people have to come out to help you when you get stuck. So it's not just personally irresponsible, it's socially irresponsible. So I would urge people to just act responsibly, use caution, use prudence, calibrate the situation, and act accordingly. With that, I'm going to turn it over to County Executive Steve Bellone to talk about the Suffolk situation and his participation in this joint effort. County Executive.
Thank you very much, Governor, and thank you for once again being here today, providing the leadership on another extreme weather event that we're facing here on Long Island. As you said, we've been through these, unfortunately, a number of times before now, but what has stood out is the proactive role that you have taken in making sure that we have the resources that we need, and that is critically important. And being prepared is a lesson that we've learned. And you mentioned about helping neighbors. I remember the help that we received during Superstorm Sandy and some other events. And I remember the governor calling when Buffalo got hit with that 7 foot of snow, and you know, we said without hesitation, of course, we will be there for our neighbors, and we send crews up to Buffalo because that's what you do. You know, we ask people to do that here when we have these extreme weather events. Go check on your neighbor. Go see how they're doing. You know, we have to look after each other. We have to watch each other, and that's what we're doing. So thank you, Governor. And we are preparing for this storm and have prepared for this storm as we would any extreme weather event. We've opened up our Emergency Operations Center as of early this morning. It is fully staffed, and one of the central roles that we play in the county, of course, is working to coordinate resources and assistance that comes from the state and other areas, and work with our local municipalities who are out there in full force doing their work and seeing how we can best utilize those resources. A number of our colleagues on the local level here, and I want to thank them for their leadership and the work they're doing. Our Brookhaven Town Supervisor, Ed Romaine, thank you. Babylon Supervisor Rich Schaefer is here. Huntington Supervisor Frank Patrone. Southampton Supervisor Jay Schneiderman. Riverhead Town Supervisor Sean Walter, and we know we're expecting a greater potential impact on the East End, so we will be monitoring and working closely with our East End supervisors and first responders. Smithtown Supervisor Pat Vecchio. Southold Deputy Supervisor William Ruland. The Commissioner of Public Safety from the town of Islip, Anthony D'Amico. And of course, I want to thank the members of our team here in Suffolk County, our Commissioner of the Department of Fire Rescue and Emergency Services, Joe Williams, and our Chief of Department of the Suffolk County Police Department, Stuart Cameron. So we are, as the Governor said, focused on preparation. We are hopeful that the storm will continue to track away, that this will turn out to be hopefully not much more than a rainstorm with some high winds. But we are prepared. Our equipment is ready. Our high axle vehicles, the equipment we need to clear roadways and debris. We're coordinating, as I said, with our local municipal partners who I know have their equipment ready as well. We've closed our outer beaches in response: Smiths Point, Cupsog, Shinnecock East, Montauk. People should check the schedules for Fire Island, the ferries. We know the Bayshore ferries have closed, and Sayville, coming out of the Sayville ferries as well, will be closing as of now at 5 p.m. But you should check those schedules, and depending on the weather, that may change in terms of what they're doing. So again, I just want to echo one last thing that the Governor said. A big thank you to the first responders. I think what we have seen in the storms that have happened, and the frequency just seems to be getting greater and greater. And Hurricane Harvey and Irma, the heroism, the courage, the dedication of our first responders, and how critical it is, and how vital it is important to our everyday lives here. And we have some of the best responders, first responders anywhere in the country right here on Long Island. So my thanks to all of them. And Governor, thank you again for your leadership on these major storm events. Thank you.
We'll now hear from County Executive Ed Mangano from Nassau. Again, the County Executive Mangano, County Executive Ballone, and myself and our colleagues have had too many opportunities to work through these situations. Nassau's always done a great job. County Executive Ed Mangano.
Thank you, Governor. I appreciate once again joining with you. I'm sorry. Okay. I appreciate again once again joining with you as we prepare for a storm. Again, we collectively prepare for the worst and pray for the best. And I think that the way that the weather's tracking now, Nassau, at least with respect to Nassau County, it looks pretty favorable. But again, weather is unpredictable, so we ask our residents to please stay in touch with the media, who is our partner in getting out important public safety notices. I am joined here today by our Office of Emergency Management Commissioner, Jim Kane, joins us. Our Deputy County Executive for Public Safety, Chuck Rabando. Our Chief of Patrol, Canavan, and several other members of our emergency management team. Similar to Suffolk, we activated our EOC, and we are, prepared to work together for whatever Mother Nature throws at us. As the Governor said, unfortunately, we have garnered an extraordinary amount of experience when it comes to emergency preparedness and response in all the counties in the state through the Governor's leadership. And in many respects, we're in a much better position because, as the Governor mentioned, during Hurricane Sandy, we had to scramble and obtain assets from as far away as California, and those were critical assets for to keep the public safety first and foremost. That is our #1 job, and all our first responders who do a wonderful job, and we must always thank them. Is public safety and life saving is #1 priority, and then it's response and recovery, and of course, during Sandy, we learned that we needed to acquire a significant amount of assets to help protect us. And now, as we still are in the acquisition stage, we are in a far better place. You could just see some of the state equipment out here and the county equipment that we did not have just a few short years ago. And I think even if this storm here, and hopefully it does pass us by without incident, today would serve as another great example of how far emergency management has come through the leadership of Governor Cuomo, where we have the ability in a very short turnaround period to not only communicate, but to bring together life-saving assets and be prepared. Again, the most important thing that we learned is you train and you prepare way before the storm. And that's what you're seeing here once again today. And I would like to thank the Governor and my colleagues that join us here today, that come together, communicate. And again, we're in a much better position to then share those assets and deploy them through, again, the Governor's communication team. We can deploy those assets to any of our neighbors or anywhere now in the state of the country should the network, should we be called upon. And I think that is really a testament to all of our first responders that here in government we have a great respect for you, and we want to support you with the best technology and the assets necessary not only to serve and protect our citizens, but also to provide you with the tools that will help keep you safe in the dangerous positions you put yourself in. So once again, Governor, thank you for today and for all of your efforts with respect to emergency preparedness.
Thank you. Thank you, County Executive.
And if I could mention, in spirit, we have with us here today our Commissioner Craig Kraft, who tragically passed away last week. He was a great leader. He's certainly someone that we should always honor because he, in fact, worked very hard to acquire assets from the military and other areas that we repurposed to help protect the public. So, Craig, I know you're looking down on us and you kind of pushed that storm away from us, and we thank you for that because we would not want to go through it without your leadership here in our county. God bless you. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you. Thank you, Ed. Nicely said. As County Executive Mangano said, we are at a whole different level of expertise and preparedness and equipment for emergency response. There's probably been no more dramatic change in government, state and county and local, than the tooling up for these new emergencies. And it wasn't done easily, and it wasn't done inexpensively. This is expensive equipment, and it was an investment by the state. And then to come up with a system where we could move it all across the state and transport it on 24 hours notice was not easy. And that wouldn't have been done without the partnership of the legislature. And I want to acknowledge that. Sometimes I'm accused of not acknowledging the legislature enough, but I am doing that on this occasion, and I'm glad the cameras are here. For the Senate leader, I'm so proud and surprised that the Senate leader said not only does he want to be supported from a legislative role, but need be, he will be in a dump truck picking up debris for the entire duration of the storm. And I just want to thank you very much for that, Senate leader, because that's a new level of public service. With that, Senate leader John Flanagan.
My good friend gives me the unenviable task of having to help clean up sometimes his mess.
True, true.
Now, let me, I want to just mention a couple of different things. First of all, welcome to everyone. Here we are in the great town of Huntington. And the primary reason that we're in this beautiful facility is because of the stick-to-itiveness of the gentleman to my left, our governor, of course, Andrew Cuomo. Many of our local officials know what transpired over many years in this community in terms of a potential rest stop. This is beautiful. It's beautiful. It's very well done. And it really is, frankly, a welcoming center. It's a great venue. I didn't realize how big it was. And here we are in a place that we really should be. And the governor used the term investment. Keep focused on, this is an investment. This is a wise investment of tax dollars. It'll help promote tourism, getting people to our state parks, and all kinds of good things like that. So I think there are a number of instances that we could point to, whether it's in Nassau County or Suffolk County or across the state, where the governor has assembled a strong management team and a very strong team of individuals who are experts in their field. And that inures to the benefit of all of our residents here, not only on Long Island, but across the state of New York. I do want to make a particular note of my colleagues who are here from the state government level and my colleagues in the New York State Senate, both of whom represent not only Nassau, but Suffolk County, Senator John Brooks and Senator Carl Marcellino. And to our east, only slightly, but a gentleman who's a good friend and someone who represents a tremendous amount of our coastline communities, and that's Senator Phil Boyle, and certainly by no means last, our colleague in the New York State Assembly who happens to represent this area, someone who's always active in every issue that I can think of, and that's Assemblyman Andrew Rea. And you know what, I think it's important to recognize, when you look at all the assets that are here, this doesn't happen by accident. And for all the things that we get accused of and sort of criticized for in Albany, this is a team effort. The governor presents a budget and talks about making investments, and it's our obligation to work with him. And we do so willingly, and I'm comforted by seeing all the first responders, our law enforcement personnel. The only person I see almost as much as the governor on Long Island now is the superintendent of the state police. And it is actually a very good sign for the people who live here. So I want to give a shout out to all of our uniformed personnel who really aren't looking for accolades. They're doing their jobs, and they do a fantastic job in protecting all of us, and I recognize that as well as everybody else. Now, the governor and the county executives spoke to what is potentially coming. And, as someone who's watched, like everybody else, storms that have happened on Long Island, I almost feel like we could get lulled into a little bit of a sense of complacency, because everyone says, well, it's not a Category 5. It's only a tropical storm. Tropical storms have devastated parts of Long Island in the past, as we all know. Trees falling down, flooding routinely. So the notion that we're talking about a tropical storm, it still matters. It still matters. And what I would hope is that the public not only stays in tune, but involved and just really listens to the experts who are out there, including the governor, because he's got the bully pulpit better than anybody in terms of informing the public, and we are playing a support role, as we well should. Now, I'll get on the truck if I need to. You have to make sure you're pointing the truck in the right direction for me. But, you know, I want to also compliment the governor. We had done our office, and we are not the only one. We did a number of emergency preparedness seminars over the years, and we brought in a lot of the state agencies, and I'm going to go to something that everyone deeply understands. First of all, help your neighbor. We all pay attention if we have a senior citizen living next door. Can they get to the hospital? Can they get to the nursing home if need be? Do they have their medications? And the only thing that trumps that in terms of what people pay attention to, when we would have these seminars, what do you do with your pets? How do you rescue somebody? And I always knew in my family, in the pecking order, I was dead last. It was my kids, then the pets, and those are the things that people care about and where we can be helpful in so many different ways. Lastly, and perhaps most importantly, the resiliency of people in New York and the people on Long Island. Our office was a drop-off point for Island Harvest and other not-for-profits that are out there for Harvey and Irma, and we wanted to thank people. But nobody really wanted to be thanked. People were just dropping off supplies, coming in with toilet paper, paper towels, water. We had dental equipment dropped off, all kinds of things, toiletries, toothpaste, and all anyone wanted to do was help. That's why I'm very proud to be part of this team here, and I hope only for the best during the situation. But again, tropical storms can be quite daunting themselves. Governor, thank you so much for being here and for continuing to lead.
Well said, Leader. And the Senator is exactly right. You know, Long Island's strength now becomes weakness. One of the beautiful things about Long Island is it's a coastal community, the beaches, the water, the bay. Yes, and that's the vulnerability that we're looking at in a tropical storm. And our next colleague has done more than just about anybody on Long Island to pay attention to the environment and keep it clean. Our coastline, our water, and that's Assemblyman Steve Engelbright. Steve?
Thank you, Governor. Thank you for inviting me here today. This beautiful center stands as a testament to your commitment to our region. This wasn't just designed out of a can. You put a lot of your own thought and affection into this place. And it serves another purpose, as has been mentioned. This is also a site for emergency preparedness. And so I just want to say thank you and join with what John just said for your very important role in bringing us together, not just today, but in preparation for what may come. Let me just add, to give a sense of perspective, the hurricane of '38 was a Category 3 storm. It came ashore in late September of 1938 without warning. Nobody knew that it was coming. As a result, it took many lives, and the devastation is still being felt in the East End communities. We have progressed since then. We now have advanced warning, and more importantly, locally here, we have great leadership that is led by yourself, that is really very precisely focused on making sure that Long Island is never again taken by surprise. In 1938, the first warning that there was something terrible happening on the East End was when the seismograph went off of its chart in Fordham University in the Bronx. It was from the crashing of waves on the beach. 30-foot waves were sending earthquake signals. That's not how we should learn, and that, in fact, is not what we're here to do today. We're here to say that we're ready, that we have great attentiveness to the potential for harm that this storm can bring, and that we're not going to let anything happen that we have humanly the ability to deal with. So I under your leadership, Governor, New York has led the way, and we are ready, and we are prepared. I also want to mention, I have a colleague, Andy Rea, who has just returned from the Florida Keys, where he did a firsthand inspection, again, in part to be better prepared. And thank you for your attentiveness. Governor, thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you, Assemblyman. With that, any questions from the media on the upcoming storm or the preparedness?
Yes. So you're saying all this year we'll sit here until Maria, the threat of Maria has passed, just so homeowners know there'll be less area to come in?
Yes. We basically have closed the Welcome Center as a Welcome Center. It was designed with a dual purpose, a Welcome Center, Tourism Center, et cetera, but for a situation like this, to do exactly this. Emergency deployment, that's why we have the size of the parking lot we do, et cetera. Suffolk Police have a headquarters here. State Police have a headquarters here. There are restroom facilities, et cetera. So this will be closed as a welcome center. We'll keep the equipment here through Maria. Obviously, it makes no sense to send everyone back and the equipment back. It's large pieces of equipment. They came from all across the state, so we'll leave them here until after Maria passes, and hopefully that's the end of the alphabet for a while.
Executive Below mentioned the outer beaches. Are those the communities you're most worried about at this point? Is there anything on the North Fork?
Yeah, you know, Fire Island obviously is always a concern because they're out in front. They're going to face the first impacts of the storm, and it's an extraordinary place, Fire Island, this national seashore. It's a national treasure, but it's also a barrier that protects the South Shore of tens of thousands of homes along the South Shore. And, you know, we have done a lot of work through the governor's leadership and support of our federal partners, restore the dune line along Fire Island. So that's something when we have a storm like this that we're always watching very closely because it can take a battering. And, you know, that line and, you know, those protections are in place, not only for Fire Island, but again, for the entire coastline here.
Anything else? Okay, let's pray for the best, and let's be smart, and let's be safe. Thank you very much.